Hello, nonprofit leaders. I'm Sarah Olivieri, your host, and this podcast is here to assist people like you, executive directors, board members, and other nonprofit leaders make a bigger impact with insights, tips, and lessons learned from nonprofit leaders and experts. Having been an executive director, a board member, and now a consultant and coach, I truly understand the challenges you face. And that's why I'm here. I'm all about working smarter, not harder, so you can make a bigger impact without the burnout. And so is our sponsor, DonorBox. DonorBox isn't just a suite of helpful fundraising tools, it's a partner that helps you raise more money and supports you in retaining your donors. I love their forward-thinking approach. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. And don't forget to sign up for the Inspired Nonprofit Leadership newsletter, where you'll get bite-sized, actionable tips just for nonprofit leaders like you, delivered weekly to your inbox. Sign up at inspirednonprofitleadership.com/sign up. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. My guest for this episode is Jeremy Weiss, who has been featuring top entrepreneurs with video interviews since 2008, which I feel like is maybe ancient history in that department. We'll find out. And he has interviewed some top CEOs and founders, including of Pixar, P90X, Atari, Zapier, Einstein Bagels, Mattel. The list goes on and on. His podcast is called Inspired Insider, and that's where he shares his interviews with over 225,000 people on social media and email subscribers. He runs Rise 25, where he helps B2B businesses, and that includes you, nonprofits, connect to their dream 200 clients, or in your case, it might be donors, referral partners, and get a return on investment using a podcast. Welcome, Jeremy. It's such a pleasure to have you. Before we dive into things, podcasting, outreach, relationship building, would you tell us a little bit about yourself so our audience can get to know you?
Yeah, Sarah, thanks for having me. This will be fun, and I love talking about relationships and ways to give to relationships. My obviously choice is to do it via podcasting, and so is yours. And so a little bit about me. I have a strange background. My background's in biochemistry. I went to University of Wisconsin. I went on to chiropractic school because my dad suffered with a lot of neck pain when I was growing up, and I saw a chiropractor was the only thing that helped him. And so that's what I decided I wanted to do. I went on to chiropractic school, and my daughter was asking me the other day about why I majored in biochemistry. And I said that was a dumb decision because I spent a lot of time in the library. But I heard that the hardest classes and board exams in chiropractic school was biochemistry. And I knew I wanted to do that, or I thought I did freshman year. So I majored in it. So I figured by the time I get there, it's going to be simple. Maybe it wasn't the best decision, but I ended up teaching courses like in chiropractic school. Instead of charging by the hour, I guess I was always kind of entrepreneurial. I would, I could make whatever, $15 an hour tutoring, but I charged classes of people, which were like 50 or 60 people, $10, $15 a head for like a 3-hour like study session. And she was like doing math. She's like, so wait, you made $500? Yeah, I go, yeah. And I was doing it like Saturday and Sunday. So I was making $1,000 in a weekend for us, like a broke college student. That's a lot of money, right? So anyways, they don't teach you marketing and business in chiropractic school. And so I was going to these marketing and business conferences, and I stumbled across this thing. At the time, it wasn't even called podcasting. This is like 2008-ish. It was more just like interviewing people and publishing online. And it was everything that I love, which is, giving to people, profiling them, talking about their company. It's content marketing, because remember, I was a biochemistry major, not an English major. I do not like writing content. And so, I could turn that into a blog post. And it was just professional development, right? I was able to talk to, like you mentioned, ask any question to the founder of RX Bar on how he grew his company, or the founder of P90X and how they grew their company. And just, I would do it if no one's listening, just for my own personal development. So, that's kind of how I got into it. And people started asking me. It was an accident. I never wanted to start a company on this, never set out to do it. People were asking, because I had a full-time chiropractic practice that I was running, and people are coming and saying, Jeremy, can you help me launch and run my podcast? And I'm like, I guess I can, like in between patients, I can like help you. And that turned into a separate business on accident. So that's how it kind of got started.
I love that. I was just reading an email from an entrepreneur who I like, and he's like, sometimes your side thing becomes your main thing. We just read that this morning, so I'm like, oh yeah, there you go. Your side thing became your main thing.
And people
You're
say,
right. I love,
Sarah, do
yeah.
you miss it? Whatever. Because I eventually sold my practice and I don't practice anymore. But you see, I don't know, if someone's watching a video, if there's a video, you could see there's a chiropractic table here. This is not for patients. It's, my education was well worth it just for treating my family who need an adjustment or need help with their back. So
I love it. So obviously, yeah, I do love podcasting. Having my own podcast has made me love it even more. I've always loved, like you, all forms of video content production for myself as a way to share my thinking and my message. Like you, I don't love writing. It doesn't, like, I can write well, but it doesn't feel like easy and joyful. It feels like work. And
I'm
just
same camp as you.
hopping on a video and having conversations with people, like right now, like I'm just having a great time. Like I would do this if Noah's watching. I'm excited to get to know you and learn about what you have to bring to the table. So I want to make sure we hit on two key things. One is, what is the power of podcasting? Like I want to dive into there, but also I think you probably developed a superpower in interviewing people, getting to know people, asking people questions, which to me is like the secret key to building great relationships. So whichever direction you want to start with, I'm going to leave it to you because it choose your own adventure.
Yeah. So give me the first question. What was the first one?
What about podcasts, like
Oh,
specifically? What does that bring to people? Hosting and guesting.
yeah. I mean, I guess, Sarah, I'll talk about the objections. I get a lot of objections with this. And, well, there's so many podcasts out there and I don't know what to talk about. And, how do I get an audience? But people say, yeah, it's like all these objections. Right. And so, I just kind of tell people, fine, don't do it. But, for me, that just, it's I don't know, best kept secret, but it's definitely an advantage, right? I don't know what I would do without the podcast. Like, how do I reach out to people? How do I give to people? I mean, there's a lot of different ways we do it. And so like we meet as a company at least once a week. We have a CRM and we have a partner CRM for nonprofits. It could be a donor CRM or whatever. So we have a meeting. There's 4 of us on the meeting. We use Active Campaign. You use whatever. There's free tools, Trello. We used in the past. We use Pipedrive. But we pull up and everyone gets a card, logged into Active Campaign. And then we set a future date of when to reach out to these people. So our columns in this CRM, people have a pipeline for, okay, moving from this person to donating is like the final one. But all the columns, it's not like reaching out. For us, it's what are ways we can give to them, right? And so one way is we feature them on our podcast, right? And I know when I put them on the podcast, that's an automatic follow-up system because I have them on the podcast. We talk about the company. In a couple of weeks, we put out a full blog post of video and audio, obviously, in all the podcast channels. Then 6 months later, we create a snippet from that podcast, put it on social, tag them in it. A year later, we create a snippet of that, send it to them. 18 months later. So it's just like, I know once I have them on, it's just a constant way of giving to them and creating marketing for them. Right. And so I put them in. I like systems that once I do it, I know the rest is just going to keep happening. Other columns, right, could be whatever the way someone wants to give to someone. For us, that's the podcast. Second, we may introduce them to other podcasts, right? Like yours. Like, okay, this person's a leader in nonprofits. We should introduce them to Sarah. It'll benefit Sarah, it'll benefit the person. They'll make a great connection. They'll collaborate. So that's another column. Have we introduced them to another podcast? Another is we have a physical newsletter that we publish, and there's an insert in that physical newsletter that we feature episodes. Like on one side, the insert is an episode of full kind of page of that person, and the other side is another different one. That's another one we do. We send gifts to people. Like, we're not talking expensive gifts. Like, we will send a campaign of gifts, maybe 3 gifts a year for 4 or 5 years to our partners. And they're just simple things. Like, I like getting food, Sarah, so we send food related things, like chocolate covered this or popcorn or whatever it is. And that the funny thing is we started doing that a couple of years ago, and now our clients asked us to do that for them. So that kind of turned into something that we actually do for companies. But, that's another way to get people. Another way is just posting a social, like just something on social about their company. So, I say podcast. If you're thinking, well, I never want to do a podcast, that's cool. Like, whatever ways you want to give, right? So like if I had a nonprofit, you better believe I would be looking at all of my donors, and I would segment them into, I look at 80-20, right? There's a great book, one of my favorites by Perry Marshall, which is 80-20 Sales and Marketing. And, he actually was also mentored by Richard Koch, who has a lot of 80-20 books if you go to Audible. And so I personally look at, and we do this for our partners too, which is kind of equivalent to donors, but we look at the top 20% and we start there. And then we go, okay, how can we really give? Because I know every business, small business, nonprofit, whatever, usually we're strapped with time and resources a lot of times. And so I look at, okay, what's the 20% we should be focusing on? Even beyond that, what's the 5% that's going to result in 95% of the results? So we kind of look at that. And obviously in our pipeline, in Active Campaign, we have the meeting, we have just more frequent touch points to those 5% or the top 20%. And so that's the way I look at it, is just
I love that.
Developing relationships.
Yeah. I think I like that you use the word giving. And I want to just take a moment, like, for everyone out there thinking like, oh, because so many people, when they think about, especially approaching donors, they're like, oh, how do I make this next ask? But I think it's really helpful. To me, I just think of them as interactions. We're building a relationship. Like, who are we inviting to the party and what kind of party is it? But I like thinking about it in terms of giving. And you got my brain kind of really going with those examples. And by the way, pro tip, everyone listening, whenever somebody like lists how they think about the columns in their pipeline, take note. It's like one of those little tactical things that I think is so helpful. And I love that you meet as a team to brainstorm around this. But so when I think of a podcast and donors, you can have, like, when you think about how do you make your next interaction a way to give to those donors, and you give enough until they want to reciprocate. But and you can give somebody, maybe some of those donors being a guest would be a gift to them, right? It's an opportunity. Maybe some of your donors, it's giving them an episode. And I've done this. I use my podcast actually to help my clients when they need information from an expert that I'm not an expert on, and I want to get them connected with that expert. If I just reached out to that super expert, cold, nothing, like, I might not get much response.
People are busy.
I can really speed up the relationship. I just think, hey, will you be on my podcast? Right? And then I'll literally interview them about the things that my clients want to know. And then I have given that expert a gift. We get to know each other. I've made a good connection. And I've given my clients a gift. So, like, you can give your donors a gift of information that they care about. They care about your mission. Like, if your mission is like helping animals or some sort of cancer treatment, right? You can give access to information, ideas, and even people. And a podcast, like, to me, is this tool that, like, you just listed all these things. They accelerate the things that opportunity for having conversations, and they just give you so many pieces, like you said, like the clips, the video clips, or the episode itself, or the follow-up, right? The chance to say thank you. There's so many opportunities to have an interaction with somebody.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And like I always say, the best way to get referrals is to give referrals, right? And so even it could be simple as like making an introduction for someone not related to anything else. So that I find out someone, oh, they're going to San Francisco or something. I'm like, oh, let me connect them with someone from San Francisco. It could kind of help them the best restaurants or whatever it is. So I think getting to know the people. I mean, this happened the other week. One of our best referral partners, who's become a friend, was complaining about their neck. And so I went on Amazon and I just found a contraption that I thought would help them. And I just asked for their address and I sent it to them. And, you know, it cost me like $40, but just the thoughtful and appreciation of that was really it wasn't about the money. It was just like, hey, they probably wouldn't have gone on their own and gotten it, right? And they would just probably suffer through it. But it could be anything like that. So I'm sure, the more we get to know our clients and our partners, in this case, donors, the more we can kind of see opportunities to give to them.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to point out too, right? So like, yes, like donors, and I think having a podcast for nonprofits is very relevant for donors, but I think in certain cases it's also relevant for your clients, right? Especially if you're an association or a club. But oftentimes we want to get the word out, right? Part of our job is educating the community, letting them know we're here, and a podcast can be really great for that. You mentioned referral partners. Like often, like you need to make your ideas, your services, your organization referable, and make it easy for someone to say, oh, like you should check out this organization. So one thing if I say, here's their website, but if I say, hey, here's a podcast episode about that thing you were just telling me you cared about, right? Like, and now I have this much nicer way to kind of refer and bring somebody into that nonprofit's world.
I mean, you said it perfectly, which is referable. It's a lot less intimidating for someone. It's very easy for someone to introduce someone to me. And I love when my friends have podcasts, because then I don't believe, hey, do a get to know you call with Sarah. It's easier to be like, listen, go on Sarah's podcast. You'll hit it off. She's awesome. And it's just an easy introduction, or people start qualifying. Well, I'm not sure if they need that company's services or whatever. I don't have to do that. It's like, hey, go talk to Jeremy, go on his podcast. You can explore whatever from there, as opposed to, hey, do a get to know you call, or, maybe you should talk about his services that I think you benefit from them. It's just more of an awkward conversation than, hey, go be in their podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. All right. I want to ask you about, the process of interviewing, asking questions, getting to know people, because so many people, I think, who struggle with relationship building, which is the key to secure funding, by the way, folks out there, they always are asking me, what do I tell them? And I was like, that's the wrong question. You should be asking, what do I ask them? So I bet you are really good at asking questions. Tell me a little, what have you learned over the years? Like, what are great questions to ask people? How do you build that rapport?
Yeah. So one of my favorite books in the world that I probably listen to once every year to 2 years is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, which it's the same philosophy, right? Is asking about them. And there's like a chapter of the book where it says, there was two people talking, and one person basically talked for 99% of the time. And like, you are the most interesting person. And that other person said practically nothing, right?
Because that was Abraham. He tells that story on many of his talks I have recounted. He was in like an airport, right?
I don't remember like the scenario, but yes, in that book,
Abraham
they talk.
story.
Jay Abraham is great. Yes. So I think of that book, and when I tell people, because a lot of times, sometimes the people we're working with have been podcasting for 6 years, sometimes they've never podcasted at all. And so we have to kind of train them and coach them. And I tell people, just go with the mentality of you're just having a conversation with someone and you're asking things that you're curious about, right? Because that's what I love about the podcast. You just get to ask the questions, right? And really find out from them. So for me personally, it starts with some research, right? Because if you go in, the person, like I will check, and I maybe sort of go overboard with this, but I'll search them on YouTube, and I have a Chrome extension that speeds up indefinitely the video. So I'll listen to it in 3 times speed. So I may listen to 3 hours of them talking if there is that amount. Not everyone has all that stuff on YouTube. But if they do, I'll listen to, up to 3 hours of stuff and at 3 times speed, obviously. So it only takes me an hour. But I want to research them. I look at their LinkedIn, I look at their about page. Like I had a conversation with someone the other day, and I just looked at their LinkedIn, right? And they were introduced by someone they're interested in doing their own podcast. And I looked on there and I saw like something weird on their LinkedIn. And so I didn't start off with, what's your business do, this and that. I go, what's this thing about Notre Dame that you have on your LinkedIn? And we just talked for the first like 7 minutes on Notre Dame, why they love Notre Dame. And it was just an interesting conversation. It just went because I did a little research. And out of all the things, that stuck out to me. You may have looked at it and something else may have stuck out to you. And then just ask about what jumps out, right? And so I remember an example was when I had the founder of Atari on. He also founded Chuck E. Cheese. He was one of Steve Jobs' mentors. And so I'm like thinking, Sarah, like, what am I going to ask this person? Like, what am I going to talk about with this person? And so I did some research and I found out that Steve Jobs offered Nolan Bushnell as the founder. He offered Nolan Bushnell 33% of Apple for $50,000. Okay. And when I found that out, obviously I'm going to ask about it. Like, what happened with that? Why'd you turn it down? And so I just had that one. So finding out, for me, it starts with research and then finding out a couple things that jump out to me that I'm curious about, that I want to ask about. And that's where I start. And then I obviously open-ended questions, right? A yes or no question just shuts down the conversation. So it may be around, I remember, so I had the co-founder of Pixar on, Alvy Ray Smith, and same thing goes through my head. I've done thousands of interviews. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? Jeremy, just settle down. Just ask them an open-ended question, like how this all gets started. Right. And so then I could ask follow-up questions on that. And he talked I said, how this Pixar thing all gets started. He talked for probably 20 minutes around George Lucas and Steve Jobs first investment, and how other investments fell through. And it was just a fascinating conversation. I basically sat back, relaxed, and just listened to his great stories. And so for me, it goes with research and, open-ended questions, but I go in the mindset of just asking things I'm curious about. Right. And it could be nothing to do with either of our businesses. It could be like I geek out on books and Audible. So I may go, hey, what are your favorite Audible books? What should I be checking out and buying? Right. So again, it's something I personally am curious about. So that's kind of where I start.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, some of the things I always like to think about what I respond to. Before I had my own podcast, I was a guest on many podcasts. And I always listened, noted which guests got what I consider the good stuff out of me. And often it was asking those follow-up questions, like you said, is so, so key. And all you have to do is listen. And then it's great.
That's a really good point, because I feel like a lot of people, they have certain questions and they're just, someone says something and they just go on to the next question. They could have been like, my mom had cancer and blah, blah, blah. And then someone says, so what kind of apps do you like? It's like, wait, did you even hear what the person said? So like active listening and asking follow-up questions. Totally
Yeah.
agree with
And
you.
from what I hear from you, like, one good question might be all you need to kick off an incredible interview. I've also realized in listening to podcasts, I started listening to a new one. I'm like, wow, these are long episodes and I'm really enjoying them, like hour plus episodes. And it's specifically on women's health and menopause. But the host is interviewing specialist doctors, and she takes a good 30 to 40 minutes just to like go into their journey of how they became a doctor, their life story. And I realized like I ate that up like as a listener because we love learning about people. Like, even though, I'm there to like learn about women's health things, I'm like, and it reminded me like, oh yeah, like nourish people's stories, like make space for that because we're all human. And it goes into like, what do you say to a famous person? My answer to that is like, people are people are people. When people ask me about like, how do you consult with a really large organization versus a small organization? My answer is the same. Well, people are people are people, and we can bring our people skills to any table like that. So your reflections on like a good interview really is making me think about like, yeah, people are people are people.
I had, you have some of these people I've had, talk to, we mentioned P90X and Tony Horton, and I, we talked about this before we recorded, was like humanizing these people. Right. And so I said, before we started, I go, what, you go, we need to humanize you. Seem almost like too big. Like, it doesn't seem like a real person. Like, what's a weird thing about you that we should talk about? And he said, well, actually, when I traveled across country from the East Coast to the West Coast, because I wanted to be a personal trainer, when I got there, I made my money as a street mime. So I would put my hat on the street and I would do street miming for money. That's how I paid my food and rent. And I'm like, that's crazy. You wouldn't have thought of that. And then I asked him, of course, hey, can you do something? And but it humanized him. And same thing with some of these people who are sometimes seem larger than life founders. They're just people and they have quirks and weird things about them too.
Yeah. So I want to connect this part of our conversation to what we were talking about earlier, because it strikes me, right, when you do an interview well, you kind of get to really know people, right? You learn maybe something intimate about them, however you want to define that. And I imagine, especially with your process of, I don't want to say, I hate the word following up because that doesn't sound fun, right? Ongoing gift giving. How do you connect what you're learning in those interviews, and how do you think about the ongoing gift giving?
I mean, what I'm learning in the interviews, that's why I have, Sarah, probably 100 tabs open on my computer. Because if someone mentions a book, first of all, sometimes I just have my phone here and I'll buy it before we even are done with the interview. So
I said that because I'm always doing that too. Like, I'm going to buy it. Boop, boop, boop.
yeah. And so I have it up and yeah, it's not like I'm not listening to them, but like I click it, I search it, and then I hit it. And by the end, I'm like, oh, by the way, thank you. I just bought that book. And I'll actually listen to them. And a part of my follow up is actually, executing on the things they talked about, right? That's the highest compliment, I think, if someone's on a podcast, like following what they're actually saying and telling them. So like the other week, someone mentioned a book that was like so impactful. They mentioned 3 books. 2 of them I had listened to, 1 of them I hadn't. So I listened to it, or I bought it, listened to it. I'm halfway through it, and I just took a screenshot of my phone and emailed them. I go, thank you. I'm halfway through this. It's really good. Right. And, or if they mention a software tool, I'll put a tab open on my computer to make sure to check it out if it's of interest to me. So then I'll follow up on that and thank them for that.
Yeah.
So it's almost an accountability piece as well, but it just sends a message back to them, like what you said meant something to me, and I'm
Yeah.
working on it.
That is, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I think that is one of the best ways to give to people is to, and I feel that way very, as someone who helps people as a coach, consultant, I often feel like I can't like emotionally, psychologically work with anybody who isn't going to implement advice, because implementing and making the progress, like they don't have to do everything I say, but I want them to be working to achieve the results that they're working with me to achieve. And it hurts my soul when they don't. So I know how powerful that gift is of being part of somebody's progress of their journey and really being part of that. And so just acknowledging the difference it made to you.
Say to
So
someone, Sarah, hey, don't ever email me again on the results you're getting because of my advice. Like
I'm
that's not
always
going to
like,
happen.
but it's hot.
You're like, hey, send me more of that. Like, what else are you doing, implementing that you recommended or helped me with? Right. So
Totally,
yeah,
totally. And then I just to add on one thing I've really become aware of recently as I know more and more authors is how much work goes into and how powerful of getting reviews, especially on Amazon. So a gift I've been adding, because I also will read people's books, is I'll leave that review
that's
on
huge.
Amazon,
That's
and it's huge.
huge.
Yeah.
Like you could, and I've had people on the podcast, I had no business talking to them. Okay. Like they're, I say this kind of tongue in cheek, joking around, but like they're just uber successful, but they will go crazy if I like leave them 5-star review on their book. I'm like, really? Do you really care about? But they do, right? Because they spent so much time and
Do.
energy on it. It's also just a gesture of one, reading it. Most people don't read it at all, and then two, going that extra mile and leaving a review that helps. So I totally agree. Love it.
Makes a huge difference. I know we're pretty much at time, but I have to ask you, as someone who reads a lot of books, do you have some top recommendations to share? What are
I don't
you
know if you
loving?
want any specific genre of books or like business. I mean, I tend to listen to nonfiction
Yeah,
stuff.
give me the
So
nonfiction.
yeah, and
Everything you've
so
mentioned so far have been some of my favorite books, so I'm
yeah, I
sure you've
mean,
got good ones.
I'll go through. I mean, I have, I think, over 600 books in my Audible. So some of my favorites of all time, and I'll go through some of the ones that are recent. But I mentioned How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mentioned,
Mhm.
The Four Agreements is one of my
Mm,
favorite of all time as well. Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely is a really good one
I
that
don't
I
know that
like.
one.
It's by Robert Cialdini is one of my favorites. Also, those are for me like classics. I geek out on direct response marketing, copywriting. I'm sure the nonprofit, they send the best like direct mail pieces and things. So, and I'm very creative with that. So I love Joe Sugarman's book on copywriting. It's one of my
Nice.
favorites
I
of
wanna
all
make a
time.
note on that
Yeah.
because the nonprofits who are really good at direct mail, they are doing this, but I think a lot of nonprofits don't know what it's called. So direct response copywriting, like, Google that.
Totally.
It is a skill you need to learn.
The Adweek Copywriting Handbook by Joe Sugarman is one of my favorites. And it's so simplistic. It's not complicated. And that's what I love about it. It's what's the point of the headline, Jeremy? To get him the subheadline. What's the point of the subheadline? To get him the first sentence. What's the point of the first sentence? To get him the second sentence. So I'm like, oh, duh. So like, if the headline sucks, the rest of the whole thing could be great and doesn't even matter. So his is great. There's so many copywriting, like direct response books that I like. But I like
Yeah.
ones on giving, like relationships, like we're talking about.
Mhm.
Brian Kurtz Over Deliver is a fantastic book. And, some of the recent ones that I listened to that I liked, and some authors like Chris Voss, I had on my Inspired Insider podcast, Never Split the
Yeah.
Difference.
It's great.
Phenomenal
How about
book.
have you interviewed Tall Raz?
I have, I wanted to. I messaged with him and he has responded to it, but it has not come on. But he would
He's
be,
on
yeah,
my secret list of people
because
I
he
wish I knew, like,
co-wrote.
every
Well,
book he co-wrote is one of
yeah.
my
All right. Well,
favorites.
if I have him on, then you'll be my co-host for that episode. How about that?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he co-wrote Never Split the Difference. He co-wrote
Alone.
Never Eat
Yeah.
Alone, Imagine It Forward, and he just came out with, I have it right here, it was another really
I'll have to check it out.
fun, simple one. He just co-wrote with Noah Kagan
Oh,
on $1 Million
okay.
Weekend.
Yeah, I
Another
know Noah.
fantastic
Okay.
read.
Awesome. we'll give Noah a shout. I'll have to. I had not bought that one, so I'll have to
Oh,
buy it.
you will like it. Another
Okay.
one that like just introduces the basics again so well, with a few key nuances. But I think, the more it's like the more you elevate, the more the top people are executing the basics really,
hmm
really well. It's not about
Yeah.
advanced tactics or know-how. To me, it's
You
about
mentioned that the book Wooden. So by John Wooden has a bunch of books that he co-wrote or wrote or about him that I love. But Wooden says exactly what you're talking about, which
mm,
is, he had some of the best players of all time, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Walton, and what he would do. And the book, by the way, what I love about it is short, and I think I'm not a fast reader. I'm very slow, and I read it
me
in like an
too.
hour and a
Yep.
half, the whole thing. But he talks about the first thing he would do with his players, even the superstars, he would teach them to put on their socks and shoes.
Yeah.
And like
Yep.
talking fundamentals, because he's like, if you get a blister, you're out for you're out. So I
Yep.
need you to put on properly, and they would think he's crazy, right? Like, I know how to put on
Yep.
socks and shoes, but it kind of goes down to the fundamentals and the things that trickle down. So Wooden is also one of my favorites of all time too.
I love it. I've heard that story so many times, but I haven't actually read his books.
It's
So
short.
yeah,
It's like you'd finish in an hour and a half.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I
All
could talk for
right.
the next hour about books, but
I
yeah,
could
yeah.
tour and make me think of all sorts of things. I mean, those basics are so, so important. So many places we could go, but instead we'll wrap up today. But I'd love to leave for folks listening thinking, okay, maybe this podcast route makes sense after all. Who should be reaching out to you, and what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so you can reach out to me there, Jeremy Weiss, Weisz, and just say, hey, and in a message say, heard you from Sarah. And, my podcast is inspiredinsider.com. There's tons of free content. Everything we talked about, like we've done an episode on that. How do I name my podcast? What thought leadership episodes? Like all those things we do for free. You can check them out on Inspired Insider. Just search like podcast and they're all there. I mean, questions, the contact page is there. And then rise25.com is our main website. And you could poke around. John, my business partner, we have a sense of humor about it. So you can check out the video there on some outtakes and what we talk about there.
I love it. I love it. Well, definitely follow Jeremy on LinkedIn, partly because you should follow him, and partly because if you're a nonprofit leader who is not active on LinkedIn, I believe you should be. So make this your LinkedIn task of the day. Thank you so much, Jeremy. And thank you out there for listening and everything you do to make our communities better. You can help your friends and colleagues make a bigger impact by leaving a review and a rating for this podcast wherever you listen it, because the algorithm will then dish it up to more people, or simply just sharing it with a friend or colleague who could benefit. Until next time, I wish you all the best.
You've been listening to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode or the bonus episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share with your friends and colleagues. Tune in every week for more useful insights and wisdom on nonprofit leadership. Thanks so much for all you do for the communities you serve. Until next time, all the best.